1. We should be recording. Yay. I'm cheering for Joni. I know you guys are too, but she can't hear you, no matter how loud you cheer. All right. Well, before we hand it over to Joni for her lesson today, I'm going to cover the usual tips and tricks for anybody who might be new today. We do have, looks like 85 people on today, so that's fun. If you look in the bottom center of your screen, it should be the same on most devices. Depending on what you're using, though, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, you might have to hover your mouse over the screen to see those, because they do disappear eventually. Or if you're on a device with a touch screen, like a cell phone or a tablet, you might want to touch the screen in the center, and it should pop up. But in the lower left, which is going to be over right about there, okay, you should see something where you can start your video if you'd like to, and many of you have already done that. That means we can see you. If you'd like to not be seen, just don't start your video and you should still be able to hear us. If there is anybody that can't hear, normally the problem is that they haven't clicked join with computer audio. So obviously if you're hearing us now, you're not having that issue, but if anybody ever asks you about that, that's one of the things. You have to make sure you join with computer audio. We also like to encourage you guys to ask questions throughout the class. So that's also going to be right on the bottom. It should be right kind of near the center. And you can virtually raise your hand. You can see maybe in the participant screen there, Jason has his hand raised right now. So if I unmute him, he can ask a question. And you may have to also unmute yourself. Hey, what's up, Jason?
Hey, Brian. How's the weather over there?
It's perfect.
All right, Nancy Riley and I are here to say hello to Joanie and you.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Oh, good. Hi, Nancy. Good to see you. All right. So if you have any questions for us throughout the class, I'll be keeping an eye on it today while Joni teaches. All you have to do is click the button that says raise hand. And if you can't find that, as Sean says, you can just kind of flail your arms around and hopefully we'll see you and we can unmute your audio so you can ask your question. If you can't get to either one of those, or if you have something else you'd like to add, you can click the button that says chat. And if you click chat, a little window will pop up on the right side of your screen. You can actually type in your questions or comments over there. And I think that should be about it. If you guys do have any questions throughout, then make sure you either raise your hand virtually or do one of these things. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to our instructor of the day, the Lady of Lowry, Joanie Monero.
Thank you, Brian. Hi to everyone. So good to see you. Many of you I haven't seen in a long, long time, so it's great to see your faces, although I have to admit and tell you that I can't see anything because I have to face the camera, but Brian tells me you're all there, so I'm happy to hear that. That opener was a medley that I chose to do because all of you can do that medley, and some people aren't sure of how to make a medley or create a medley. Well, that was Cuando, 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 and then Spanish Eyes, and then More. And you put the three of those together and you have a nice little Latin medley, which I use the Latin guitar on that for the music style. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's a fun medley to play. And I'm looking forward to today. I'm going to do a little bit of education and do several features as well on the various instruments. But the educational part I wanted to start with first, and I title that Muscle Memory. And to me, muscle memory is so very important. Whether you have been playing for 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years, or 14 years, your fun of the hobby depends on your left hand muscle memory. If you have it, things go smoothly. If you don't, things don't go so smoothly. And a lot of things can happen when we're stumbling over a left-hand chord. Now, I'm going to give you some formulas for how. If you don't have muscle memory, and what muscle memory means is that your left hand is totally independent. So you don't look at your left hand in order to play your left hand chords. If you're looking at your left hand, a lot of things can happen. You look down to find the chord, and then you look back up at the music, and you have no idea where you are, and then 16 beats have gone by, and then you finally found your place, and then you go on to play till the next time you have to look. Whether you play one or two easy play chords, one finger or two fingers, what I mean by that, or you play 3 or 4 finger chords, muscle memory is equally as important. So let's review a couple basic things. First of all, it's important to know your finger numbers. So on the left hand, the pinky is on C. That's finger number 5. And a lot of people think they have to know when it's a 2-note chord, they have to know the letters. You really don't have to know the letters. You just have to know the finger numbers. So I know if I use, can you see this? If I use finger 4 and finger 2, I know I'm going to get a D minor. And that's most important. You don't have to memorize the letters. You just have to know which fingers to use for the chords. So when we put our pinky on C, we give every finger a note and every note a finger. Don't skip any notes. Don't skip any fingers. And therefore, all the chords we need, with the exception of B flat, will be in that position, so you never have to use your left hand. And that's so important. I'm hoping that this little segment here will take you to the next level of your playing, because if we can make that left hand independent, then you could just go on and have a grand time playing your right hand, and you know the melody, and it's just a matter of familiarizing yourself with the notes, and it can really take you to the next level of playing. If you're playing full chords, which I know some of you do, that position, we keep the full chords between F and F octave. And that way, there's very little movement in your left hand, and hopefully you don't have to look. Now, if you don't have this muscle memory, which I know a lot of people are trying to develop it, but they don't have it or didn't have it in the beginning, there's a nice, easy way to get it within 5 to 7 days. And I really guarantee that. If you do what we're going to talk about today, you can have muscle memory in your left hand under your belt quite sufficiently in a matter of 5 to 7 days. So the first thing you want to do to develop it is try using the easy button and just playing through the chords of whatever song it is you're trying to do. Now, most of us are peekers, that's what I call, because you peek at your left hand, and you'll tell yourself you're not looking, but you're really looking, and then you lose your place. So one of the things we can do is we can cover our left hand with the easy button, and I'm going to try to show you that now, although I don't have 3 hands, but I'm going to try to make the best of it. So if you can see that my hand is covered and I go to play my chords, I'm looking in the screen. It'll tell me what chord I'm playing. So here's my C chord. Here's my F chord. Here's my G chord. Here's my G7 chord. Here's my D minor chord. Here's my A7 chord. Here's my C chord. So you notice my hand is covered. Normally I would cover it with my right hand. I'd take a piece of paper and cover it. Now the trick is, I told you could learn this in 5 to 7 days, and the trick is that if you do this, and I'm going to give you different ways to make it fun, because if we just had to sit there, I know a lot of people have been given the advice of, well, you know, you need to play your left hand and learn your chords and then go play the right hand. Well, that's not totally fun. We need something else to make it fun. So I'm going to suggest that you do this exercise 4 times a day, maybe 1, 2, or 3 songs, and associate it with breakfast, lunch, dinner, and before you go to bed. And the first way to do it is with the easy button, no rhythm, and do what I just did. The second thing we want to do is this time we want to put a little background with it, but you don't want to have to keep up with the rhythm yet because you're not quite sure. That's fine because it'll come along. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the golden harp. Now the golden harp exists on from the EY 300 fanfare on up, and this gives you a little bit of background to make it interesting, but it doesn't clutter it with rhythm and the whole band behind you, but you can hear your chords being played. So I'm going to slip over here with the golden harp, and I'm going to do those chords to whatever the song is. Put on my easy button and my golden harp. Now, when I put my golden harp on, I need to select a pattern. And each time you do this, you can select a different pattern. So it kind of is fun for you. It varies the background to keep you interested and keep reminding yourself that she's sad, that if I do this for 5 to 7 days, I'm going to have muscle memory, and you are, which is going to make your whole musical life much more fun. So here's my golden harp, and I've chosen up and down. So the golden harp's going to go up, and it's going to go down like this. Now, depending on the song that you're playing those chords to, with golden harp, you can control the speed. So if you're playing a little bit faster song and you're still trying to learn the chords, if you go to your tempo button and you speed the tempo up, we have no rhythm style on right now, no musical style. You speed the tempo up, it will speed the golden harp up, which makes it so if you're playing a little faster song, you get a little more speed going in the background like this. Now, if you're going to play a slow song, you'd want to slow the tempo down so the golden harp is moving slowly. We're still not using our right hand. All we're doing is maybe perhaps singing the melody in your head, but we're just changing the chords when they should be changed. And remember, no peaking. You're not allowed to peak. So that's the second thing. Now, I wanted to mention, I'm going to go over to the Easy 10 right now. And what I'm going to show you is we don't have golden harp there, but we have an easy button. And when we use the easy button, two things happen. You turn on the easy button. On the below your upper sounds are the lower sounds. And there's something called ensemble, and then there's something called more. If more is on, this is what you're going to hear. Do you hear that sound? Is somebody shaking their head? Okay, that's what I call the plunker. Because every key, even if you're using a rhythm, every note that you play is on the left hand is going to sound that what I call plunker. It's usually a piano or some type like that. If you don't like that plunking sound, you can go to the button next to it, which is called ensemble, and this makes a much smoother sound for your chords. So we don't have the plunking sound that we would have with the more button. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure people understood. Whenever you hear, sometimes the ensemble and the more button come on at the same time, and if you don't like that staccato plunking sound, you can turn the more button off, and then you'll just have the ensemble, and that'll make a smooth sounding chord for you. As I go back to the symphony, there's another way with the easy play chords. Sometimes we hear a drone, what I call drone hum. And that is usually, typically, 2 flutes come on when you have flute tabs at instruments in the Elite series. Sounds like this. Oops, I got golden harp on. Let's hear it this way. So you hear that drone hum? If you don't like that hum, which I don't prefer unless I'm doing some kind of theater organ music, I turn off my lower tab flutes and I turn on my lower tab strings. And when I do that, I get the same smooth sound that you heard on the Easy 10. It's much smoother. And that is how you control that sound on the midline to upper instruments and the easy instruments. So first we want to associate playing 2 or 3 songs with your easy button. No rhythm style, just that. Maybe at lunchtime you want to apply the golden harp. And then by dinner time, maybe you want to put on the rhythm style. And the first thing I recommend with the rhythm styles is, especially now, we're trying to learn muscle memory, and we're trying to get these chords to change at the right time. And so what you want to do is always be slowing the tempo down so that you're not losing beats in between changing the rhythm. So let's say I'm going to play the Sweetheart's Tree, and I'm going to put on a little bit of a waltz here. And I'm just playing the chords now, but I'm going to have a rhythm on. And I look at my rhythm and I go, well, I'm not sure. That's a little fast for me. So I'm turning it way down to about 85. And I'm going to start the song, but still not play the right hand, just change the chords. And you notice I'm not looking at my left hand. Maybe I'm looking at my music, but don't look at the left hand. Look in the window if you want to know if you played the correct chord. Just look in your information center, which all the instruments have. So now, the third time you've done it in a day, now you have a little more interesting because we have a background behind, and so it's kind of amusing us, and we're going, okay, I'm getting those chords, I'm changing it. That's great. And then just before you go to bed, the 4th time you do it, you probably want to go back and do the golden harp again, only because you're winding down when you go to sleep, and you want to try it with something that's kind of lovely and smooth. But we work our rhythm during lunch and dinner, and just associate it. And this doesn't take but a few minutes. If you do it 4 times a day, 5 to 7 days, I promise you, you will have muscle memory. Whether it's full chords or easy play chords, it doesn't matter. And when you put the rhythm style on, be sure to sing the melody in your head. Doesn't matter if you're playing the Saints or the Sweetheart's Tree, or when you do golden harp, maybe you sing in your mind how great thou art. Really doesn't matter, but doing that 4 times a day, 5 to 7 days a week, develops your left hand. And the minute you have independence in your left hand, you're on for a whole new level of your musical journey, because now all you have to do is pay attention to the melody and whatever sounds you want, and your left hand does its own thing with its own, what we call, muscle memory. So let's take a moment now and see if we have any questions so far.
All right. I don't see anybody waving their hands here. You must have done such a good job, they didn't even need it. There we got one. We got a question from Winnie. Winnie, you're unmuted, but you may have to unmute yourself.
Unmute.
There we go. Hello.
Would you please repeat that, turning off the lower flutes and on whatever it was? I think it was the flute tabs you were turning on and off.
Yep, absolutely. So the question, in case you couldn't hear it, was can we go over again how to turn off the flute tabs
Sure.
and change those to the strings?
Sure.
So let me
So
zoom in here.
normally, when we turn on the easy button, at least one or two flute tabs for the lower sounds on the chords come on. In this case, flute 8 and 4. So I just touch them both and turn them off. And then I move just to the left of it to the yellow string tabs, and I turn those on now. So I have that smooth sound of the chords that doesn't have that flute drone hum. Does that make sense to you? Any other questions? So I'm offering this as a challenge to you. If you don't think you can do those steps, I would encourage you to see your local personal assistant, or if you're not comfortable going into the store, certainly we can Zoom. And I promise you that in 5 to 7 days, you'll have a good amount of muscle memory. And if you don't, you can hunt me down and call me, and I will help you out as well. Because I really believe that that gets you to be able to go to the next level where you're not concerned about your left hand, and you only get to have fun with the melody and playing in with your enjoyment. So that's really important. Okay.
All right, we got another question from Brad. Brad, you're unmuted. Try clicking unmute on. There
Now
you
can
go.
you hear me? Hello?
Yep, hi Brad.
Okay, I'm a little confused. Okay, when we're doing this, we should be playing the chords through 2 or 3 different songs. Is that what you're saying?
So the question, in case you couldn't hear it, is should we be playing the chords to 2 or 3 different songs?
Yes. Yes, because that keeps it interesting where, and I'm saying, because you're going to do this 4 times a day, it doesn't matter what the song is, it just matters that you're going to change the chords and get familiar with changing the chords without looking at your left hand. That's what's most important. So play songs that you know and love, and you'll get better and better at changing the chords, but we're not adding the right hand to it. So, there's no real skill set that you need to require that at all. Just have some music in front of you and have some fun with just that. That also makes it so that it's not a grueling exercise. If you studied piano, there were certain things you had to do, playing scales and playing Hanon and all these things that they weren't really fun, which is why a lot of people didn't stick with it. But we can make this skill set that we're trying to learn really a lot of fun by just using the features that we have on the instrument. So we use the easy button, and then we use golden harp. And each time you do the golden harp, pick a different pattern because it'll keep you interested, change the tempo, and just have that in the background. And then eventually put a rhythm style, a music style to the background, and then do your chords with that. And once we've gotten that muscle memory going, it doesn't really matter what song you play. Your left hand will be independent and fine, and you can have a great time with the right hand. Comments?
All right, we got another question from Gail. Gail, how you doing? I just unmuted you.
Hi, everybody. I was just curious whether these 4 steps could be put in a handout of some sort. So, because I took a bunch of notes, but if we had the steps, we do this and then that, so it progresses, and I'm doing it the right way to build up that muscle memory.
I think we can do that. We can put something together for that. Yes, it doesn't have to go in any apparent order, although I do recommend that you use the music style last in that session of practice each day. This has nothing to do with your other playing, so please don't misunderstand me. The rest of the day, whenever you sit down and play, you play whatever music you like and have a good time with it. This is just a commitment of 5 to 7 days, and once you've done it, you're fixed. It's a muscle memory issue, it's independent, and you can go on and have lots of fun. So it's only a brief commitment, but it is a commitment each day to
Yeah.
do it. And what you'll find is that your left hand will move along with confidence. And what happens is music is mental, is what I always say. And if you don't have muscle memory and you play your chords, and you stumble looking for a chord, and you go up and in the music and you try to find your place because you lost your place, which is very normal, and then you find your place, and then you try to get back in and get back on track with your right hand. By the time you get to the end of the piece, there can be some discouragement because you feel like I didn't play that very well. And that's why I recommend doing this little series of education, because if your left hand can be independent, you won't have that hurdle of losing your place. And if you don't lose your place, then you won't be discouraged when you get to the end of the piece. And eventually, after we're doing that, certainly in any given day, if you want to go and put the melody to the song, that's great. This exercise is really specifically just to develop your left hand skill. It's not a skill set that a brand new beginner can't learn. It's not a skill set that someone who's been playing 4 or 5 years and didn't know. I've had plenty of people I worked with who redid that skill set of muscle memory and came in after that and said, oh my gosh, it's so much easier now that I've done this. So at any point in time, no matter how long you've been playing, you can fix the muscle memory or develop it if it hasn't been, and it makes your playing go to the next level because A, you'll be happier, and B, it'll go along much more smoothly. Just remember, pinky goes on C for the easy play chords. Every finger gets a note, every note gets a finger.
The problem comes sometimes when you have these, fancy chords.
Yeah, the
Hello?
fancy chords.
Hello? Like the diminished and augmented chords where you're stretching your fingers all over the place. I don't always know how those chords, what fingers work best to play those kinds of chords. So that's my only.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Well, I'll tell you one
Joanie
thing,
M?
Gail. The diminished chords and all that stuff.
Is-
When you're looking at those, many of those can be played in that same kind of home position that Joni was talking about.
Yeah.
There are some that can't be, but when those come up, I would just talk with one of the local staff if you can get a Zoom session, or because some of those questions it just depends on how you play.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
have learned a couple of minor chords,
Yeah.
I will caution you because many people try to do it different ways. Oh, got an applause. And for G minor, G is in George.
Yeah.
I recommend keeping your hand in that position. So pinky is on C, pointer is on F, thumb is on G. So for G minor, I recommend your thumb on G and just back up your pinky to B flat, if you can see that.
Uh-huh.
And when I get finished playing that chord, my hand slides back right into that home base position, which is really important because I have not moved my hand around. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. So I know
When it
because
comes to
we
three note, it's the same process. Like, for instance, if we had a D minor seventh, it would be my fifth finger, my fourth finger, and my second finger. So it's 3 keys, but as long as we know which fingers we need to put down, and we use the chord, any unfamiliar chord, is going to make you pause a little bit. But once you've used it several times, then it becomes like second nature. Like somebody told me yesterday, well, G7, I just know to do that. Well, yeah, and C or D7, I know to put my fifth and my fourth finger down. Well, the same is true if you have a 3-note chord, and if you're not ready for a 3-note chord, that's not important. More important that you can play 1 and 2 if you're easy play, and very important if I'll just show you for a minute, if you are playing full chords, we're going to keep our fingers between the octave of F and F. So right here I am, so I'm going to play a C chord, a G chord, an F chord, an F7 chord, a B flat chord, a G minor chord, an A minor chord, a D7 chord, and you'll notice if you could see my fingers, very little movement went on in my hand. And that's the independence that you're really looking for. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you've been playing 4 weeks or 14 years. If your left hand is functionally independent, you're going to have a lot easier time of it. If you're looking, and a lot of people say, I'm not looking, but they're peekers, I'm telling you. And you find out you're a peeker when you put a piece of paper over your hand. For instance, hold it with your right hand over your left, and the only place you can look to see if you're correct is in the information screen. And then you'll see, did I play the F chord? Oh, it says F. Okay, I'm correct. But keep your hand covered so you don't look. And in 5 to 7 days, you will develop that independence. Questions? Mm-hmm. Okay, shall we move on? Give me a heads up.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm promising you on that journey, and I would like you to take the journey with me for the next 5 to 7 days, and I'd love to hear your results if you do it, because of all the people I've worked with, if they do that, they really become very successful. So that was the educational part about muscle memory, and also we covered the easy button for helpfulness, and we've also covered the golden harp, which makes it a little more interesting to do that little exercise instead of just the hum, 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 which nobody really likes to do. So we have to use the features to keep us interested. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the fill. And I'd like to talk with the fill. I know we've discussed it in the past because I've watched the Zoom lessons, but I want to talk about where, why, and how. And the how's pretty important as well. Where is the fill located? Well, depending on your instrument, you have a button that says fill, or on the upper instruments, it says FX. As you go up the line to the easy 4 and 10, you have a foot switch on the left of your expression pedal, and when you press that, it activates the fill. As you go up the line further, you also have a touch bar that you can touch, and that will activate the fill. And the last but not least is on many of the upper models, you can put the fill, even on the fanfare, on your foot pedal. So whenever you need to do the fill, instead of working the foot switch, you just step on a pedal, any pedal, and it activates. And any one of your personal assistants can show you how to do that. Makes it very, very easy. It doesn't matter what pedal you step on with your left foot, but it will activate the fills. So those are the places where the fills are. And in all cases, if you activate the foot switch on the right of the expression pedal, you will see the button will light up. That tells you that you're on the fill. If you don't see the button light up, then you might have missed the foot switch. So you might want to push it again and see if it goes. So anytime you're using an alternative to the button will still light up to assure you that you're getting that fill. And that, to me, is important to know. Is it working or isn't it? Now, why do we use the fill? There's 7 reasons to use a fill, and Brian is going to be screen sharing right now to give you those because they're all really good reasons. The first one and most obvious is if you lose your place. Now, what I want to say to that is if you lose your place and you touch the fill and you don't hold the fill, then the fill is going to stop before you found your place. No matter which beat you hit the fill on when you're playing a song, so if you hit it on beat 2, it's only going to finish to beat 4 and stop if you've just touched it one time. If you hit it on beat 3, you're only going to hear one beat of a fill, which I would say for a hobbyist, that's kind of difficult to hear until you get familiar with the different patterns of the fill. And so if you lose your place, you're going to want to hold that fill until you're ready to jump back in and you found your place. So don't just touch it and let go. Keep holding it, and that will really make a big difference. The second point is if you're turning a page, which we know that our music makes us turn pages. And by the way, when you turn a page, librarians don't like me very much because in an educational degree, they don't want you to turn your pages up on the bottom, but that's the best way to grab a piece of music. And you want to use your left hand and grab that end and flip the page. And that's the easiest way to turn your page. But when you're doing that, you're going to need the fill until you get your page turned and you're ready to come back in. Now, what we find is we can't turn the page and just jump right in because as a hobbyist, it's not that simple. So that's another case where you need to hold the fill until you're ready to come in and then watch it. And then when you're ready to come back in, you come back in on the first beat. Does that make sense? Another reason to use the fill is when you have a long-held melody note. So if you have a whole note and it's tied to a half note, we want something else going on there, so we're going to touch the fill. Now, again, if you just touch the fill and you let go, it will just finish that first measure and it won't continue into your tie. You need to hold that fill until you're ready to come back in with your left hand. Another reason to change the fill or use the fill is changing a setup. Let's say you want to push a button and you want to get a different sound. Well, fill's a great way to bide you time. But again, if you only touch it and let go, it will just finish the measure and then it will be finished. So you might want to hold it for maybe 2 measures while you touch your button or do your transpose or whatever it is that you're going to change. And then when you have 2 measures of the fill, you can then come in back with the song in your right hand. Another reason is prior to using transpose. If I'm going to transpose in a song, I generally use the fill prior to the transpose and even after at some times, depending on what kind of song I'm playing. But it always sounds nice and a little more complete to use the fill and then transpose your music. If you have a long rest, that's another reason to activate the fill. But if you have 2 measures of 2 different types of rest, you're going to want to hold on to that fill wherever you're using it by button, switch, touch bar, or pedals. You're going to want to keep the fill on until you're ready to come back in. And that's our 7 reasons. Do we get them all, Brian? Okay, good. When you're changing a setup, yeah, a style setup or a rhythm preset while pressing the ending button. That's a really good one. I use that all the time. I always do the fill before the ending. Now, that's a kind of interesting concept because if you have the fill on, let's say your foot got stuck on the switch and you pushed your ending, and we've gotten many, many comments like this of, my ending won't end. Well, as long as your foot is stuck on a fill or your finger, the fill overrides the ending. So the ending will not end and activate itself until you get off the fill. So, but this is nice because you can press the ending as you do the fill and keep the fill going until you want it to decide to end. And then you get off the fill and the ending will activate for you. So that's a very convenient thing and something I use all the time. Now, some fills are redundant, and some have many, many measures. Some of the fills in the upper end instruments of the new line, they can have almost 16 measures before the fill repeats. On the other instruments, sometimes it's one measure of a fill, and then the fill continues to repeat. So you have to listen to it and see what you like. Some fills, like Barry Can't Smile, that has a fill that the second part is for the bridge. And so if I'm using it for another song, I never hold it longer than before it goes into that second part because I don't want to hear that bridge part because I might be playing a different song. So it's nice to try to just play, do that once a day or once a week. I'm going to try 2 rhythms today, and I'm going to try the fills and just listen to it and see which patterns you like and which ones you don't prefer, which ones are subtle and which ones are not subtle. And then, we can always help you to decipher that as well with your personal assistant. Are there any questions?
We do. We got a couple of questions here. Let's go to Jan. That's one of our Sun City Center students. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Joni. Good to see you. My question is, when you're using the fill right before a transpose, I've done that on different occasions, and I'm not quite sure where to come off the fill and then do the transpose, because if you still have the fill on, when you hit the transpose, it's kind of like jarring because you hear the transpose in the middle of the fill, and it's a little strange.
You can, some people like that jar that it does the fill for one measure and then you transpose and let it do another measure and then you come back in. Other people like to complete the fill and then they like to transpose and at the end of that measure come back in. So it's really a matter of preference. I've done it both ways depending on what song and arrangement I'm using. What I don't do is when I transpose, I do not keep my right hand on a key when I'm transposing because I want to hear the transpose. I want to hear the lift and then I want to bring my right hand back in. So I don't like to do transpose with my right hand holding a note. Whether you incorporate the fill for all of it or not isn't really important, but you want to hear the transpose, and the way to be able to hear it is to take that right hand off the key until you've transposed, and then you come back in and it's, oh, I have a lift. This is really great.
Okay.
Thanks for your question.
All right, we got another question from Diane. Diane, you're on unmute here.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, Joni, thank you so much for all this information. I feel overwhelmed, but I have a lot of questions, but what I want to do first is to actually go to my instrument and see if I can figure out some of these things that I took the notes on. I am a piano player, so probably a 3-note chord would be what I would want to do. But you've given me a lot of ideas. I had no idea about some of these fills and the stuff you told me about. So I really appreciate that, and I'm really anxious to get in and try, and then I will have questions, I'm sure. So
Very
thank you
good.
very much.
Very good. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we're coming towards the end of our hour here, but we probably got time for another question or two if there's anybody else who would like to add anything, or if you have any questions for Joanie. And then in a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Robert, who's probably got some announcements for us.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is if there's anyone who did not have muscle memory at one point in time and you went back and, or not back, but you developed it, I'd like you to share your opinions of how that helped you so we can encourage other people to develop that skill set. So if any of you have been through that, I'd love you to tell us about it.
Yeah, if anybody has a story to share about what Joanie just mentioned, just feel free to raise your hand here. I'll unmute you. All right, Julia popped up first. Julia's iPad. It looks like your audio is not on though. Can you try saying something, Julia? Maybe we'll have to come back. The next person that popped up was Robert Delaney. Robert, you can click unmute and share your story with us.
Okay, hi Joni. Good to see you again. Can you hear okay?
Yep.
Okay. I started about 9 years ago and I had a giant plateau leap forward when I started getting the muscle memory, even though it was for just the Lowry chords. And it's certainly a great day when you discover, oh, I don't have to hesitate so much anymore in playing, and I can have smooth sounding playing, and it's just a wonderful realization that it can be done.
Absolutely, and it certainly gets you to be able to go to the next level with that independence, and that's what I wanted to be able to encourage people to do today. Thank you for your comment.
We also had Stephen Phelps raised your hand. Would you like to share anything with us, Stephen? Probably have to click unmute there on your lower left.
It's not unworking.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay, Joni, I've played for many years, but I'm new to Lowry, and I have no idea what you're talking about in the field. Can you demonstrate so that I have some idea of how to use what you're telling us to do?
Sure. So, what kind of instrument do you own?
A palladium.
Okay. So yours is called the FX. And you have the button and you have the switch and you
Right.
have a touch bar. So if I put on, let's see, what's a good example of that? Let me put on a big band. Here's swing band. And now I'm going to touch the FX or fill. So the drummer in the band is adding a little part to it to bide you time. Let's take another example of, let's do Hit the Road here. Now I'm going to touch the FX. You hear the drummers kind of go crazy and they add another part to it. Just biding us time to find our place or choose another sound.
Could you demonstrate it in a song?
Can you show
so-
where your left hand is touching? I don't think they can see. Where
I
your-
was touching the touch bar. So
Can you
right,
demonstrate it in a song?
right in front of my chords, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I think we're about out of time here.
All righty. Robert, are you on? Would you like to do any announcements for us?
Fill-ins, nothing more than fill-ins. I love fill-ins. Nothing more than feelings. How is everybody? Let's give, you can unmute yourself, I think. Is that, do they have that ability? Did you
I just
allow
unmuted
participants? Some of
everybody.
you can turn some of you turn on. Let's give a big round of applause.
Yay, Joanie!
Good job.
I
Excellent.
love the fill-in button. Yes. And I'm actually one of those, I like the fill-in with the, when I use the transposal mute. I like the fill-ins using it when I transpose up a lot. But yes, I do have some announcements, just some the classes and things coming up in the near future. While I'm doing these announcements, Joanie, we always finish off with a little number, as you know, so you think about what song you're going to play to close off the class today. But I'm going to do a little screen share, and I'm going to put it up on the screen as I'm talking about it. You're going to get all of this in an email as well, so not to worry. Let's see if I select the right one. So just some upcoming, I typed this up real quickly as you guys were in your class there. So as you can see, this Friday, many of you know we're going to have our Zoom musical is going to be featuring Joe Fontesha. I've already sent out the email and the link for that. We're going to do that via Zoom. Monday the 15th, if I put the right date on there, this Monday at 10 o'clock. Now, that's the only time that's a little bit different than the most. So we have a 10 o'clock Florida or 1 o'clock Arizona if you have a Rialto Inspired Journey fanfare. And quite frankly, any of you are welcome to attend these classes. Just because it says EY, there's always a lot of similarities with all the instruments, even though we pick one of those models to teach the class. And we have actually a different teacher that hasn't taught that any of our classes yet. Would you like to know who it is? You'll have to show up. It'll be a surprise. But I do have someone selected for that, and it's someone who hasn't taught in our classes yet, but will teach a great class. And then on Wednesday, we have a conductor magic class for beginners. This class is great for, I'm just learning to play, and I'm starting to, my first song or two is going to be a song like Marianne. You remember you all started with Marianne Once Upon a Time? And that's what that class is for. And what I'm going to encourage you to do, and I do this in every class, I always tell you, if you have some friends that aren't making music, tell them they need to learn to make music because it's good for them. If you don't have a friend, this is a good time to make one and share the hobby of music making. For a short time, this is for a very limited time until we get our hands wrapped around our online classes and the use of our websites and the emails and what have you. Anyone who'd like to participate, especially someone that's brand new that has never taken a lesson before, what have you, we're offering these conductor magic classes for free. So even if they don't have an instrument, it's great for them to sit in on those classes so they could see how we're teaching those and if they can learn. If someone may have a keyboard style instrument. So right now, for a very limited time, spread the word and then let us know. You can have them get in touch with your local store, have your PA contact them, email me. I'll make sure they're going to, one way or the other, contact somebody, and we'll make sure that they get the information they need. Next week, we have, for our Wednesday and Thursday class, this week we have Joanie as our feature educational class leader. Next week, we're going to have Joe Fontesha. Well, again, this is all going to be in the email, and he's got his little music tips to make you sound professional. And then next week's Friday concert, we're going to feature, our Zoom musical is going to feature Jason Bontrager. Actually, two other things. We have right now, we have some very unique opportunities going on at Fletcher Music Centers. I would encourage you to reach out to your PAs to find out what that is, because we have select models that we have in stock that are going to be offered at a very, 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 very extremely great opportunity. And last but not least, we are in the process. Our goal is by the end of the month or sooner if we can, but we are in the process of updating our website to where we're going to have all of the classes and the dates on the website. So, and with the descriptions. So if you have any questions as to which one should I go to and what have you, we're in the process. We just met with the person that kind of is in charge of our website, and I unloaded him with a bunch of information last night. So he's working on that. So over time, if you want to know when's the next class, when is the next product class, when is the next this or that, it's all going to be up there. And I think we're going to have it so that the links are there. So when it's time to join the class, you don't have to wait for an email. You just go on the website and click on the particular one, and you're right in. So just some little information on there. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Joanie to finish up with a little farewell song, if you will, for the day.
Sure. Well, I want to thank everyone for being with me today, and I hope you got a few tips and points to help you out with your instrument and your playing. And also to say, I'd love you to take the challenge of that 5 to 7 day muscle memory. And if you do, feel free to contact me and contact your local personal assistant as well. But let me know if it worked, because I promise you it will. And we're going to finish up with something for unity, because that's what we need right now. And so I'm going to do a patriotic medley, because our patriotism is really what unifies us. So I hope you enjoyed today. Thanks for being with me, and take care and be well.
And a big round of applause, everybody. Unmute yourself. Big round of applause to Miss Joanie M, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanie.
Thank you.
Much. Beautiful.
And Robert, weren't a couple of those times reversed on
Thank you.
Yes, yes, those times were reversed. Someone caught it.
Okay.
Yes, I did get it wrong. So yes, if you saw the screen, I had the wrong times on there. I had some of the Floridas, but basically here are all the correct times. Arizona, Arizona, Arizona's first. Florida, Florida, Florida. There you go. Oh, and I'm echoing across the world. There you go. So, but anyway, yes. So thank you very much. Let's give Joanie another round of applause, everybody.
Hey, thank you.
And the crowd roars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Nice to see you again, Joanie.
Great job, Tony.
Oh my goodness, listen to that. And the crowd roars.
Thanks, Joanie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We hope you enjoyed. I will
Thank
upload
you.
this. I will upload this video to our YouTube channel tonight.
Night.
And so make sure you go on and you look at it. If you have any questions, reach out to your local PAs. Thank you so much.
Bye.